All right, this next one is another one of those judgment calls. Remember earlier in the class I talked about, do we remove the mole or do we reduce the mole? What do we do? This is one of those judgment calls. In this case, we're going to reduce the size of our bride's nose. Now I can tell you for sure this bride does not have a large nose whatsoever, except for the angle that I shot her at, which is me down low and her up on the steps of the church, made her nose look larger. And anyone would look at it and go, well, her nose isn't that big. And she would probably be the first one to go, hey, my nose isn't that big. I'm gonna give you 2 ways to fix it. So here's the shot I'm talking about. By the way, can I show you something? Do you notice how, and this is very, very common, there are red splotchy areas in here, right? There's 2 ways to fix that. You just learned one of them in the last segment, which was to use sample the color and paint over it. And the other one is to use frequency separation. Frequency separation is great for helping to get rid of those color problems and match the tones much more evenly. But our situation here is we're going to work on the nose, and we're going to go under the filter menu to the camera raw, to liquefy, right straight to liquefy. Now, there's a tool in here called the pucker tool that actually makes things smaller, all right? So let's zoom in over here. We're gonna get the pucker tool. It is the 5th tool down. You're gonna make it the size of the nose, and you have to be careful with this. You have to be very subtle when you click, because if you click too much or click too hard, it'll suck the whole nose in. So make it a little bigger than the nose and just click a couple times. 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to click a bit on the bridge of the nose so it all kind of moves evenly. Just like that. I'm just making really soft, little subtle clicks. And then click OK. And look at the difference. It just kind of contracted it. And if you wanted, you could go back with liquefy and just tuck this little part up just, oh, I'm sorry, wrong tool. See how it's sucked in like, looks like a black hole. No, you want to get the forward warp tool, make it small, and just tuck that up a tiny bit. A really little subtle thing. But let's look from the beginning for where we opened it to there. That looks like her regular nose. Now, there's another way to do this. Let's start over. The other way to do it is not to use liquefy. It is to get the lasso tool and put a lasso around the entire nose, like this. All right? Let me move it down so I get all the shadow. Then you're going to put a big feather, like 10 pixels at least. Then you're going to press Command-J to put that nose up on its own layer. Now you're going to go to Free Transform, and literally you're just going to shrink the nose. Hold Shift-Option, that way it shrinks from the center inward rather than just regular. So you're going to start with it here, click a corner, by holding the Shift-Option on Mac, Shift-Alt on Windows, and push it in, the whole nose is going to shrink, watch. Holding those keys, and the nose shrinks just like that. Now, you can see there's a little tiny bit of shadow left under there, so maybe I'll use the arrow key on my keyboard to nudge it down a little, make sure I'm on the Move tool, nudge it down a little to cover that right up, and look at the difference. That really keeps the integrity of the nose together. Now, this nose is on its own separate layer. I actually probably should have selected a little higher there, but if you need to fix it a little, you can add the layer mask icon, you can go up here, and the little blend between the area where you did, whew, just a little bit of, putting a little bit of black right in there, just hides that just beautifully. So that's another way, a couple of ways to do the nose. Definitely worth knowing both of those techniques. Again, now you may have a bride that has a large nose. In that case, you'll be using this quite a bit. But in this case, this one's on me for the angle that I shot, accentuated a feature that is not accentuated really on the bride.